Now let's see the concept of compound interest. Till now whatever we have seen, it is called as simple interest. Now the difference between compound interest and simple interest is, whenever you invest some money, let's call it as principal. In case of simple interest, only principal is allowed to grow. Whatever interest you are getting, that will not be growing. But in case of compound interest, whenever you are investing the money, that principal, that will grow, as well as the interest that you get from the principal, that will also be growing, which means the interest will also be getting compounded. That is why this concept is called as compound interest. So I'll take an example and explain you what is the difference between simple interest and compound interest. Okay, now let us assume that you have invested an amount of 1000 rupees, okay, at a rate of 10% per annum. Now let's see what happens in case of simple interest. In case of simple interest, let us assume that you have invested it for 3 years. Okay, first year, second year and third year. Now in case of simple interest, what happens is, every year it is supposed to grow by 10%. Therefore from here to here it is going to grow by 10%, which means it is going to become 110% of the original. So it is going to be 1100. Right, it is going to grow by 10%. Now what does this 1100 contain? This 1100 actually contains two parts. One part is your principal and the other part is the interest that you have earned over 1 year. Got it? Now this principal is again going to be invested for 1 more year. What happens to this interest? It will not be invested, which means whatever interest you got, it is not going to grow. It is going to be stagnant. Now again this 1000 is going to be invested. For if you again compute it for 1 year, then again you are going to get 1100 only, right? Now what does this 1100 contain? Two parts. One is your actual investment, which is 1000, right, and the other one is the 100, which is the simple interest, which is earned over this period, which is earned over the second year, right? Therefore this is going to be the simple interest and this is going to be the principal. Now again this principal is going to be reinvested, but this interest is not going to be reinvested. Now what are you going to get here? Again 1100, right? So which means it is going to contain two parts, your initial amount 1000 plus the simple interest, which is 100, right? Now what is the total simple interest you got? So 100 here, 100 here and 100 here. This is your principal. Therefore when you have invested 1000 rupees, right, now you got that 1000 rupees plus 300 in case of simple interest. Got it? So nothing has happened with the interest, it is just not growing. You could have actually computed it as if it is 1000 you have invested and now you have taken it over after 3 years. Got it? Even though you are taking out the interest after every year, even if you had waited for 3 years and if you had taken the money, then also you would have got the same amount, right? Why? Because it is going to be 10 plus 10 plus 10, 30%, which means 130 by 100 of 1000, which means 1300, right? So even if you would have left the amount like that and you would have collected the amount here, it doesn't make any difference in case of simple interest, right? But in case of compound interest, it really matters. It really matters where you are going to take out the interest, right? Now let us assume that the same case, which means you are investing 1000 rupees, okay, and say you have invested at a rate of 10% and assume that the interest rate is compounded annually. The interest is compounded annually, which means you are going to take out the interest every year. Now let's see I'll just explain you what happens with that. So 10% every year it is going to grow, and assume that it is again invested for the same amount of time, 3 years. Now your 1000 is going to grow by 10% initially, right, which means after 1 year it is going to become 1100 only, right? Now what does it contain? It contains two parts. One is your initial amount and the other is your interest you got over 1 year, right? Now let us say we are going to get the interest every year. Therefore by the end of 1 year you are going to have this much money. Now in the earlier case, if you observe it, we have reinvested only 1000 and we are not investing that interest. Now in this case what happens is, you will be reinvesting your principal amount as well as the interest also, which means your interest is also get some more interest. That is why it is called as compounding the interest. Compound interest. Got it? Okay. Now this 1000 is going to grow by 10%, which means this one will become, see, this one will become 1000 plus 100, this one, and also this one is also going to grow by 10%, which means this one will become 100, which is the principal, plus it will earn 10%, which means 10. That is the difference. In the earlier case, your interest was not giving you anything back, but here your interest is giving you some more interest. That is why it is called as compounding. Got it? Therefore here the returns are better, right? Now for the third year, this one will be invested as well as this one will be invested, this one will be invested as well as this one will also be invested. Now what is the meaning of it? This 1000 is going to give you 1000 plus 100, right? And again this 100 is going to give you 100 plus 10, and again this 100 is also going to give you 100 plus 10, and again this 10 is going to give you 10 plus 1. Got it? So this is how it is going to get compounded. Are you understanding it? And now, okay, so what is the total amount? You can add it up. 1, I think it is 3, it is 3, it is 1. Alright, so 1331. In this case 1300, right? Therefore clearly this amount is more compared to this amount. So how did we get the difference? The difference is because here we are not bothering about the interest computed or when we are going to get the interest, because we are not reinvesting it, but here we are taking out the interest and again reinvest it. And also one more thing you should observe is, when are we taking the interest back? In this case we are taking the interest back after every 1 year and reinvest, right? That is why it is called as compounding annually, right? So what do I mean by compounding annually? Means every year we are going to take the interest back and then reinvest it. That is called as compounding annually. Got it? So this is the basic difference between compound interest and simple interest. So in real world, most of the cases, even if you go for these bank loans, they will also be applying compound interest only, right? So most of the places we are going to apply compound interest, and generally simple interest is not being applied in the real world, unless they mention it in the exam. You can assume that it is generally compounded. See, how to differentiate the questions is, they will clearly specify in every question that it is 10% simple interest per annum, right? Which means you had to apply simple interest. Now in this case they will say it is compounded annually, so which means it is compound interest. Now in case of simple interest, you need not bother about when you are going to get the interest, because either you get the interest after 1 year or after 6 months or after 3 years, the final answer is going to be same. But in case of compound interest, that word is very important: compounded annually, compounded quarterly, compounded after every 6 months. So why? Because depending on when we are going to get the interest back, we are going to immediately invest it. Therefore the earlier you get the interest, it will have a long period to grow. Therefore if you have, let us say this same question, if you assume that you are going to get interest after every 6 months, which means if the interest is compounded half yearly, you will be getting better returns. If you say that it is compounded quarterly, then you will get even better returns. And if you can get interest every day, right, you will get even much better returns. Why? Every day you will be getting the interest and again you will be investing. According to Einstein, compound interest is one of the greatest inventions of mankind, because if you can understand it, you can easily become rich, isn't it? And that is how many people have become rich. Even in India also, it is a great business. You invest some money and then you lend some money and take the interest every day, which means you are actually compounding the interest every day, right? Okay, so we shall again see how to derive the formula, and again I will show you the difference between the formulas also. Okay, fine.